Welcome to episode 10 of Continuing Professional Development. In today's episode, we are going to focus on speaking practice and language skills, two critical components of language development. Speaking is a skill that encompasses fluency, pronunciation, vocabulary, and confidence. And when it's practiced in a well-rounded way, it can enhance all the other skills as well. So let's dive in and explore how we can use different techniques to support our students in developing their speaking and language skills. Whether you're teaching in person or online, these strategies will be useful for creating dynamic, engaging lessons. My name is Mivanwie Thangkhiew, and the topic for today's episode is Enhancing English Speaking and Language Skills for Teachers Continuing Professional Development. Let's get started. Why focus on all four skills? As educators, we know that mastering English isn't just about understanding grammar or vocabulary. It's about integrating the four core skills. These skills are interconnected, and improvement in one often supports the development of the others. Let's break it down. Reading enhances vocabulary, grammar understanding, and comprehension. Listening helps students grasp pronunciation, intonation, and context. Writing refines grammar, organization, and the ability to convey ideas clearly. Speaking encourages fluency, confidence, and interaction with others. When we help students improve in all four areas, we're giving them the foundation to communicate effectively in real-world settings. Pronunciation practice. Let's get started with pronunciation practice, one of the most important yet challenging aspects of speaking. Students often struggle with sounds that don't exist in their native language, so it's essential to target these sounds directly. One great method for this is using a minimal pairs of two words that are almost identical except for one small sound. This difference often lies in either a vowel sound, a consonant sound, or even a change in stress or intonation. For example, the words ship and sheep, bit and beat, cat versus cut, and sit and seat. These examples help learners hear and reproduce subtle vowel sound differences. Often, learners will say sit instead of seat because of the difference in vowel length, which can be challenging for learners whose native languages don't distinguish between short and long vowels. We also have consonant sound differences like fine and vine, pat and vat. The difference in the F and V sounds can be difficult for learners, particularly when their first language doesn't have these sounds. Minimal pairs are an excellent tool because they highlight the differences that can completely change the meaning of a word. By focusing on just one sound difference, learners can isolate the trouble area and correct it without getting overwhelmed. Also, by practicing minimal pairs, students can start to recognize and produce sounds correctly, which improves both comprehension and fluency. How to use minimal pairs effectively? Repeat practice. One such effective method is to have students repeat minimal pairs multiple times, slowly at first, then faster as they get comfortable. Record and compare. Teachers can instruct students to record themselves and compare their pronunciation to native speakers, helping them adjust their mouth shape and tongue position. Technology and apps can be a huge help in making pronunciation practice interactive, fun, and more accessible. Jolly Phonics is one example of an app designed to help with pronunciation and phonics. It's based on the science of phonics, which teaches how letters and letter combinations form sounds. Jolly Phonics focuses on phonics, which is essential for improving pronunciation in a fun and interactive way. It provides an easy-to-follow approach to teaching phonics with fun songs, games, and activities perfect for both young learners and beginner adult learners. It focuses on sounds rather than just letters, making it easier for students to understand how to break down words and pronounce them correctly. For example, students can practice the sounds like sh, ch, or e through songs or games reinforcing correct pronunciation. For younger students, Jolly Phonics is a great tool because it uses songs and videos which hold children's attention while helping them understand. For example, when a child listens to the song for the sound S, they begin to recognize and reproduce it with ease. It's great for beginner learners because it breaks down sounds in a very clear, simple way. This app is available currently only on the Play Store on Android. Other tools to try. Kharwar, a pronunciation dictionary where native speakers pronounce words in their language. Learners can hear correct pronunciation of words they're struggling with. Pronunciation Power, a software that provides interactive exercises for learning vowel and consonant sounds, and even works on word stress and intonation. SpeechLink, a platform that allows learners to submit recordings for feedback from native speakers. Next, we can also integrate fun and interactive pronunciation practice methods. To make pronunciation practice less tedious and more engaging, using interactive methods is key. For both children and adults, the process of learning sounds can be turned into games or activities that not only boost pronunciation but also help improve overall language comprehension and fluency. Some fun methods to practice include tongue twisters. These are great for practicing tricky consonant combinations and can be a fun way to increase speed and clarity in pronunciation. For example, she sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. These practice both individual sounds and the rhythm of speech. Shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where learners listen to a native speaker's pronunciation and then repeat it exactly. This helps improve fluency, rhythm, and natural speech patterns. For instance, a learner might watch a short video in English and try to mimic the speaker's pronunciation, tone, and speed. Pronunciation apps with feedbacks. Some apps like SpeechLink or English Accent Coach provide immediate feedback when you speak. They analyze your pronunciation and offer suggestions for improvement. Incorporating minimal pairs, using dedicated apps like Jolly Phonics, and adopting interactive techniques like tongue twisters and shadowing can significantly improve pronunciation. Whether it's the difference between sounds that don't exist in a learner's native language or refining the subtleties of vowel and consonant sounds, the key is practice, repetition, and using tools that make the process enjoyable and effective. Speaking practice. Talk to yourself. Next up, let's look at speaking practice. One simple yet powerful way to improve speaking skills is to encourage students to talk to themselves in English. Encouraging learners to use English during self-talk is one of the most accessible and confidence-building activities they can do, anywhere, anytime. Here's how we can guide them. Narrating their daily activities in English encourage learners to describe what they're doing through the day in simple English. For example, I'm walking to the bus stop, I'm getting on the bus, I'm going to school. This turns everyday routines into language practice. It helps learners form sentences naturally without needing a conversation partner. Describing pictures. We can ask students to look at images and explain what's happening in the picture. This not only strengthens vocabulary and sentence structure, but also trains them to think in English and express observations clearly. Discuss interesting topics. This can be anything from their favorite hobbies to current events. The goal is to practice thinking in English and using language spontaneously. When students talk to themselves about topics they enjoy, they are more likely to engage deeply, experiment with language, and speak with greater fluency. This type of self-talk helps students practice fluency without the pressure of a conversation partner and builds confidence in using English in everyday situations. It also encourages thinking in English, a vital step in language acquisition that helps bridge the gap between passive understanding and active use. As educators, this is a great strategy to start with learners of all levels. It promotes autonomy, regular practice, and a positive mindset towards speaking in English. Speaking practice. Join conversation groups. Another excellent strategy is to join conversation groups, whether they're online or in person. These groups can be casual settings where students practice speaking with peers. A practical tip. Here's what we can do in conversation groups. Practicing real-life scenarios. These are everyday situations that students are likely to encounter outside the classroom, like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions in a new city, or making small talk with a role-play situation. Students take turns being different characters. Imagine a group activity where one student plays a tourist and another is a local resident. The tourist asks, "Excuse me, can you help me find the nearest train station?" The local responds, giving directions, and both get to practice listening, responding, and thinking on their feet. For role-playing, these moments, learners can practice vocabulary, sentence structure, and polite expressions in a realistic context. In conversation groups, role-play offers a dynamic way to stimulate real communication. Teachers can effectively implement this method by assigning students different roles: waiter and customer, shop assistant and buyer, interviewer and job applicant. They take turns stepping into these roles using English to express needs, ask questions, and respond appropriately. Let's say one student is acting as a waiter and another as a customer. The customer might say, "I'd like to order the grilled cheese, please. Can you recommend a drink to go with it?" This creates a natural purpose-driven conversation, something that goes beyond textbook phrases and starts to resemble everyday English usage. Not only does this approach improve speaking fluency and comprehension, it also helps learners develop cultural awareness and appropriate tone, skills essential for real-world communication. Perhaps more importantly, conversation groups build confidence. The more students are exposed to speaking in a variety of situations, the less intimidating real conversations become. Over time, they start to recognize patterns in dialogue, learn to self-correct, and become more comfortable expressing themselves, even when they don't know every word. As educators, our role should be to encourage participation, create a safe and inclusive atmosphere, a space for structured, purposeful practice that bridges the gap between classroom English and everyday communication. Speaking practice. Record yourself. Have you ever suggested that your students record themselves while speaking? It's one of the most effective ways to monitor progress and improve. This simple practice offers enormous benefits. It gives learners the chance to hear how they actually sound when they speak English, something they don't experience in real time. And more importantly, it provides an opportunity for honest personal reflection and improvement. So how does this work in practice? Teachers can ask learners to record themselves speaking for 1 to 2 minutes on any topic, like describing their day, giving an opinion on a news story, or summarizing a book or film. After recording, the key step is making them listen back intentionally, not just to hear their voice, but to analyze their performance. Here are a few things learners can focus on during playback. First, pronunciation. Are there particular sounds or words that are consistently mispronounced? Can they hear where their speech might be unclear or where emphasis is misplaced? By identifying specific pronunciation challenges, students can focus their practice on the sounds that need attention, whether it's final consonants, stress patterns, or intonation. Second, fluency. Are they speaking smoothly or are there frequent pauses and hesitations? Does their speech flow naturally or do they seem to be translating from their first language in their head? Listening back helps learners become more aware of their rhythm and pace, and over time, they can work on speaking more naturally and confidently. Third, vocabulary. Do they tend to repeat the same words or phrases? Are they relying too much on basic expressions when more precise vocabulary could be used? Recording and reviewing themselves gives the students the chance to spot their patterns. They can then make it a goal to add new vocabulary to their next speaking attempt, consciously pushing themselves to grow. And what's powerful about this approach is that it encourages self-assessment and autonomy. Learners begin to take ownership of their learning. They start asking better questions like, why do I keep hesitating here? Or how can I say this more clearly? This is when real development begins, when learners become aware of their strengths and weaknesses and begin addressing them actively. As educators, we can guide this process by offering checklists or reflection questions to help students know what to listen for. We can also normalize recording in the classroom, making it part of regular speaking tasks. Recording speaking sessions turns passive learners into reflective practitioners. It is a strategy that supports long-term improvement and builds learner confidence from the inside out, and an excellent way to take ownership of their learning. Listening and reading practice. Listening and reading are closely connected to speaking practice. To help students improve their listening skills, encourage them to listen to English podcasts or music for pronunciation. Podcasts help learners get used to different accents, speech speeds, and vocabulary. Music, on the other hand, is great for rhythm, pronunciation, and stress patterns in spoken English. A fun activity might be to play a short podcast excerpt and have students summarize the main idea, or listen to a song and identify specific phrases or expressions. This builds both comprehension and confidence in spoken interaction. Watch English movies or shows with subtitles. This is an incredibly engaging way to develop listening comprehension and vocabulary. Students get to hear how language sounds in real-life contexts, with the added support of subtitles to reinforce understanding. Over time, this encourages students to switch from subtitles in their native language to English subtitles and eventually watch without them altogether. To make it interactive, Asking them to pause a scene and to repeat a character's line, imitating pronunciation, emotion, and intonation is a fantastic way to work on spoken accuracy. Read books, articles, and magazines in English to expose students to different contexts and styles of writing. Encouraging students to read books, articles, short stories, or even online news in English exposes them to diverse vocabulary, grammar structures, and writing styles. Reading not only strengthens language input, it also gives students something to talk about. After reading, they can summarize the text, express an opinion, or even retell a story in their own words. This bridges reading with speaking and improves both. For speaking practice, we can try performing plays or dialogues in class. For example, we could use dialogues from the popular movie Frozen. A dialogue example: Anna, do you want to build a snowman? Elsa, do I want to build a snowman? Yes, I'd love to. Role-playing these dialogues helps students focus on intonation, how their voice rises and falls, pronunciation, getting the sounds just right, emotional expression, adding meaning and energy to their words. And let's not forget, it's fun. Performing a scene makes language memorable. It's a chance to step into someone else's shoes, use English creatively, and build speaking skills in a natural, engaging way. As educators, we can support this by choosing age-appropriate, culturally familiar scripts and giving students time to practice before performing. Understanding what you read. When students read, they need to focus not only on pronunciation but on comprehension, making sure they understand the message behind the words and sentences. As educators, we can help guide students through this process, encouraging them to read actively and engage deeply with the text. So how can we do this effectively? First, let's remember that understanding isn't a passive activity. It's something that requires effort. When students are exposed to a text, they should ask themselves questions about it. Questions that help them reflect on the deeper meaning and connections within the story. To practice comprehension, we can ask students specific questions about what they've read. These questions should challenge them to think beyond simple recall and test their understanding of the content and character motivations. For example, after reading a passage, we might ask, what happened after the character did X? Why did the character feel this way? What can we infer about the setting from this part of the story? These types of questions not only test comprehension but also encourages students to speak about what they've read. When students explain what happened in a text, they practice summarizing and using the language to express ideas clearly, skills that directly improve speaking. In addition, we can encourage students to answer these questions in their own words, rather than simply repeating phrases from the text. This pushes them to process the information and express it in a more personalized, fluent way. For example, when asking what happened after the character did X, students have to recall the sequence of events, a process that encourages narrative skills. They might say something like, after the character did X, she felt conflicted because Y happened next and that led to Z. This helps them practice forming coherent, connected ideas, which is crucial for fluency in speaking. Why did the characters feel this way? Prompts empathy and deeper engagement with the text. As students reflect on the emotional aspects of the story, they also practice articulating opinions and explanations, further developing their critical thinking in English. What can we infer about the setting from this part of the story? Gets students to think about the context and subtext, which improves their ability to make inferences in conversation, another key speaking skill. By using these techniques, students are not only improving reading comprehension, but also directly strengthening their speaking skills. The ability to discuss what they've read in their own words boosts their confidence and ability to speak fluently about a range of topics. This process of reflection and response is an incredibly effective way to build active comprehension. The more students engage with the text, asking questions, answering in their own words, and analyzing content, the stronger the spoken communication becomes. Incorporating these techniques into regular classroom activities creates a holistic learning experience where reading, speaking, and critical thinking go hand in hand. So when students are reading, let's encourage them to not just read the words, but to truly understand them, think about them, and discuss them in meaningful ways. Writing practice. Writing is an essential skill for reinforcing what students learn through reading, listening, and speaking. One effective method is the use of writing models, showing students examples of different types of writing, such as formal letters, essays, blogs, or stories. For example, when developing short stories, students should focus on these basic components. The plot. The sequence of events in the story. A short story should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Characters. The individuals around whom the story revolves, they should undergo some development. Setting. The time and place where the story occurs. Theme. The underlying message or idea. Conflict. The problem or challenge the protagonist must face. Resolution. The outcome of the conflict. Discussing these elements in class helps students understand how to organize their thoughts and communicate clearly in writing, which also translates into better speaking skills. Vocabulary and grammar. Now let's talk about vocabulary and grammar, the building blocks of effective communication. One way to reinforce vocabulary and grammar is through highlighting the importance of parts of speech. In vocabulary and grammar reinforcement activities, teachers can integrate flashcards that focus on different parts of speech. Example, for nouns, these are words that name things, people, or places. Flashcards could include apple, dog, city, or teacher. Students can work in pairs or small groups, drawing a card and then using the noun in a sentence. For example, I ate an apple, or the dog is playing outside. This helps students practice not only recognizing nouns but also using them in context. For verbs, verbs represent actions or states of being. Flashcards could have run, jump, think, or speak. Students can then create sentences or act out the verb for others to guess. For example, I like to run in the park, or she loves to jump on the trampoline. This encourages students to connect verbs with real actions, making them more memorable. For adjectives, these describe nouns. Flashcards for adjectives could include happy, blue, strong, or tall. Students can describe objects in the classroom or people. For instance, this chair is blue, or my brother is strong. This can be made more fun by introducing comparative and superlative forms, asking, which is the tallest student in the room? Or who feels the happiest today? These flashcards not only help students understand the function of each part of speech, but they also encourage active speaking practice, which is essential for building fluency. To make this activity even more interactive, students can mix parts of speech together. For example, a student might pick a card with a noun like a dog and another card with a verb like run. They would then have to create a sentence like, the dog likes to run in the park. This reinforces their ability to connect words and form grammatically correct sentences while using new vocabulary. Teachers can challenge students further by asking them to expand the sentences with adjectives or adverbs like, the big dog likes to run very fast. In addition, games and interactive exercises can further reinforce these concepts. For example, a matching game could involve students pairing words that fit together, such as run with quickly or dog with playful. Another fun idea is the word scavenger hunt, where students search for objects in the classroom or outside and have to use them in sentences, identifying which part of speech each word belongs to. The key to success here is to create activities that allow students to practice using vocabulary and grammar in real-world contexts, reinforcing their ability to use language naturally and with confidence. As educators, we have the opportunity to guide students through the complexities of vocabulary and grammar with engaging hands-on methods. Flashcards, interactive games, and sentence-building activities are all fantastic ways to reinforce these skills. By giving students the tools to actively use the parts of speech in real communication, we help them build a strong foundation for effective and confident speaking. And that wraps up today's CPD episode on enhancing English speaking and language skills. By using these practical interactive methods, from pronunciation practice with minimal pairs to speaking in real-life scenarios, let us help our students become confident and capable speakers of English. The more integrated the skills, reading, listening, writing, and speaking, the more successful our students will be in their language learning journey. My dear teachers, let us keep on experimenting with these techniques and not be afraid to make learning fun for our students. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you again in the next episode.